No, hello everyone. In today's video, we'll be looking at episode 18 of What If Civilization Started a War. And in the last episode, we saw a button happen, like the Americas being discovered more, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and a lot. So yeah, let's begin. And before I begin with the whole mapping stuff, I'm gonna go over to the layers. Now, I've made a new layer, not that one, the population layer. So we can see where the population of the world is. Dark green's very high, green's high, yellow's medium, pink's on, red's very low, so yeah. You can see where all the population is in the world. Now, over to, I can't find it, the alliance there. There's a lot happening with the alliances, I'll explain it later, but over to the trade routes. Need to add some more trade routes, because, because there's some more things happening. So with the trade routes, we need to put on major cities first. There's a trade route. What was that? A trade route has been built that goes to Russia's capital, and this is going to help Russia out a lot. There's also a trade route that links up through the Balkans, so that's nice, I guess. And finally, over to Asia. There's a trade route being built, and that's going to go down this peninsula and to Indonesia. Now, this trade route has entered Indonesian territory, but hasn't linked up with this major city just yet. So, it's not complete, anyways. We better take off major cities, because it'll look a lot better. Anyways. Firstly, over to Australia, since we're here. More of Australia is actually going to be discovered. Now, it's mainly going to be the west side of Australia being discovered, because, Asia's right here, and mainly India is right here, and I want to explore land. Now, the east side is still going to be explored by Australia, and this Australian country actually views himself as European. Now, there are the red religion, and I'll put up the religion layer real quick if I can find it. They're the offshoot of the red religion, they're the light red religion, so they identify themselves as European, and the Papua New Guinea country does too, but yeah. Now, Australia will discover some land, but not nearly as much as what has been discovered on the west side, because of course Asia's right there. But Australia doesn't really like all the countries on their island, so they're going to take land. They link up with Indonesia, which kind of has some bad stuff, because Indonesia wants to take some of Australia. And they go down this coast over here. Now, Australia, they're not the richest, so they're going to have to stop. But they do end up taking a lot of Australia. But over to India, they will also take land, since Australia is not really on the west side, so they can't tell India to not, so they take all this land. Likewise, Indonesia takes land, and they take a ton of land, and Australia is very mad. So we might see a war, but I don't know, Australia is nowhere near as strong as Indonesia. So, whatever. Anyways. Over to Africa, see something bad happen for just Tanzania. They start taking land, which that isn't the main thing that's going to happen, but something very bad happens that's going to kind of make them lose some land. So the capital of, I'm going to say Indonesia, Tanzania, it's going to be moved. Now, you might be asking, why is this really a big deal that the capital's being moved? And that's because the capital is where the tribal capital was. A lot of people where Lake Malawi is, I think it's what it's called, aren't liking that Tanzania is becoming more modernised and is moving away from their tribal ways, because Tanzania originally started as a tribe. And the new capital, if you're wondering, is going to be right on the coast there. So, a lot of people not liking Tanzania, going away from their origins, are actually going to break away. And we see an orange rebellion start, and this has a lot of support from Lake Malawi, because, Tanzania originally started as a tribe, and they're moving away from their tribal ways, and they weren't happy with this, and they blame India, because they linked up with India, so Tanzania is fighting a civil war. The tribal people, they're not really tribal, but they have some tribal aspects, and they will take all this, and Tanzania doesn't they don't want to fight all, so they're going to let this Mallory have its independence. So the Orange team gets their independence, and they'll be putting their capital. Was it here or here? I think it was here. So they put their capital in the old capital of the tribe. No, yeah. I mean, they had a capital when they got a capital when India came, because it was just that little village. But anyways, seeing what the Orange Rebellion did, this blue team, which was migrants from Tanzania, was mad that they were abandoning their past, will also start expanding it. The blue team is probably the weakest African country. In fact, they are the weakest African country. And, some European countries might want to just colonise them, so they're taking land, and they actually take a ton of land. Yeah. South Africa will meet up with the blue country as they enjoy positive relations with them. Yeah, so they meet up. No, we'll do it for the South Africa. Over in Sahara, um, I think more of the Sahara would start to be explored, but I mean that's sub-Sahara, so if I can get a big enough brush, and all of this is discovered mainly by Nigeria, but up north it's too Saharan. That doesn't make sense. There's too much sand, so they don't go in. Anyways, this Portuguese puppet, well not puppet, colony, will actually start expanding because, I don't know, it'll start expanding their colony now. This colony, it's not the most stable of colonies, has a bunch of people who don't want to be Portuguese, so expanding this much kinda is doing bad stuff for this colony, but Portugal doesn't care, and they want to keep expanding, and this island is discovered. Yeah, let's just say it's taken over by Portugal. Yes. Over to the Americas, this is where a lot of explorations will take place. Baja California will meet up with the main Mexican explorers. They meet up with the known land. Eventually, all eventually, all of Mexico will be discovered, and this is actually a really big brush. That's better. And over in Quebec, this island's discovered, but it's actually not by the English, so who's discovered this island, you might be asking? Well, the French, and they take it. The French, they lost the war to Germany, and they've always been wanting to colonise the Americas, and they finally send a boat out, and, they don't land in over here, but they land in America nonetheless, so, yeah. With English, they work with the English, and eventually all this land over here is discovered, and better for Quebec. And Sweden actually lands in Quebec, and they meet up with the main people in Quebec. They meet up with the French and English. Eventually, all this land will be discovered. And over in Greenland, more and more of the ginormous island is discovered, but Sweden doesn't really take any land because there's really no point, and it's just money we wasting to keep this land, and there's just no point to take it. So Sweden doesn't take land from the Americas. They take some land, more of the more populated land, so they take this island, and that's really it. They don't really take anything else apart from all this. So yeah, that's nice, I guess. So go Sweden. However, Sweden will be discovering land, and they discover this island. They don't discover all of the island, but they discover a good part of the island. Then I think there's a city in real life right down here or up here. I could be wrong because it's freezing cold, but they discover all of this over here, so that's very nice. And America is slowly but surely being discovered, and Sweden will set up a little colony in this island because they see it as, other people might try to take this island, so Sweden takes it before anyone else can take it. So yeah, anyways, more and more of Quebec is discovered until they meet up with Lake, or whatever this base called. They meet up with it, and yeah, this is pretty huge. And eventually, not all of Quebec, but a lot of the waters of Quebec, and pretty much all of Quebec, the southern part of Quebec, I keep saying Quebec, will be discovered. And a treaty is made between the French and English to take over Quebec. And so we can look at this treaty. And in the treaty, both sides get the fair amount of land. England takes all this and France takes all this. Over to Brittany, they will actually meet up with the English colonies. England, they're finding stuff, and yeah, Brittany wants to trade. So yeah, they will also discover more of the Americas, and eventually the Mississippi is fully known about. That's the Mississippi fear. It's not, but I'm gonna say that's the Mississippi. And eventually, more of Canada will be discovered, and they too meet up with Lake Hudson. Lake Hudson, whether it's called Bay Hudson, I actually don't know what this is called. Eventually, Brittany will start taking land, and they're going to try take over the Great Lakes, but England actually starts putting claims over the Great Lakes, and since Brittany don't want a war, they're going to not take all of the Great Lakes, so yeah. England doesn't take the Great Lakes now though, but yeah, whatever. They also make Galicia and Brittany will make a treaty dividing up all this land, and in this treaty, Brittany is allowed to take all of this land over here, and Galicia is allowed to take all of this land over here,